Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on today's webinar, 8 Ways to Get Millennials and Gen Z to Give. I'm Nicole Jones, Director of Communications here at TechSoup, and I'll be your host today. Okay, so we have got a lot of great content to go through today, but before we go to that, we're going to just cover some housekeeping to make sure we all know how to use ReadyTalk. So you can chat to ask questions at any point. And just to note, your lines are muted, so we're unable to hear you. So again, any questions you have, the chat box is the place. If you lose your internet connection, you can reconnect using the link that was emailed to you. And for all upcoming and past webinars, you can visit the TechSoup website to find them. And then you'll also receive an email with this presentation, recording, and links. And lastly, tweet at us at TechSoup, and you can use the hashtag TSWebinars. So this webinar is brought to you by TechSoup, a global network bridging tech solutions and services for good. More than 1.1 million nonprofits in 236 countries and territories have benefited from TechSoup and recognize TechSoup as their unique resource partner. And it's made possible with the support of more than 100 corporate donors and providers of software, hardware, and services who have chosen the TechSoup platform to create and grow impactful in-kind donation programs. You can learn more about all these great offerings that you can take advantage of by visiting our nonprofit tech marketplace at TechSoup.org/get-product-donations. But TechSoup is much more than just a tech marketplace for getting great deals on software and hardware for your nonprofit. We also offer online and offline communities to foster collaboration and peer learning opportunities, in addition to useful tech resources and tips through TechSoup's free blogs, webinars, forums, and articles. That plus our Apps for Good division, where we collaborate with experts to create and curate relevant solutions that help communities around the world. All right, and with that, we're on to introductions. So on today's webinar, we're joined by Moshe Hecht. He's the Chief Innovation Officer of Charidy, a crowdfunding platform and consulting company. He's an accomplished entrepreneur whose passion lies at the intersection of technology and charitable giving. And he's joined by me, your host, Nicole Jones, Director of Communications at TechSoup, in addition to our fabulous Communications Project Coordinator, Zareen Kazi, who will be helping to answer your questions along the way. And with that, I am honored to hand it over to Moshe. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Moshe Hecht. I am the Chief Innovation Officer at Charidy.com. So Charidy is a unique hybrid of a crowdfunding platform and a fundraising consultancy. So we launched in late 2013 and have in these short 6 years helped north of 4,000 nonprofits raise over $800 million. And it is from this knowledge, working with these 4,000 nonprofits and raising said funds, that I bring to you our actually second presentation for TechSoup. So last one was a lot of fun. We hope we have this much fun this time. I bring to you 8 ways to get Gen Z and Millennials to give. So I think a good place to start is for us to create a foundation of how we define what a millennial and now the new infamous Gen Z. It's almost like we were just trying to get caught up on how to engage with millennials. This new generation came in and threw us a curveball. So I am going to be kind of meshing them a little bit together over here and presenting to you some of these insight with both millennials and Gen Z. Some of them ring a little bit more on that older age. Some of them ring more on the younger age. But I think many of this knowledge and insight is pertinent for both of these generations, of both of these demographics. So, we hear millennials and Gen Z so much today. It's this buzzword that apparently has gotten so many of you come here today. And I think it's important that we get onto the same page of who we're talking about here, okay? So, we tend to isolate the millennials as this alien group of people, this alien culture that has, this mindset that has never existed before, and we have to find some wild ways to attract them. And I think it's important that we realize that what we're really talking about here is actually a state of mind and not so much the age demographic that we typically think of this, right? So millennials, generally speaking, are anyone born from between 1985 and the year 2000. Gen Z is anyone born past 2000. And, these are the agreed upon numbers by researchers, give or take a few years. So what does that mean? That if I'm born in 1984, December 31st of 1984, I no longer fit into this category? I just made it. I was born in April of 1985. So am I a millennial more than someone born 6 months before me? And I think it's important to realize that it's less to do about the age and more to do about the state of the mind. So if you look at my screen right now, you'll see a picture of this woman on the top right who looks like she's probably within the right age range of a millennial. But then you have grandma here on the left right? So grandma was witness to Pearl Harbor, but today she loves to, she's a graphic artist and she loves to generate memes online, and she shops at Abercrombie. And then you have below grandma, you have here our toddler who's maybe 3 or 4 years old and happens to be an Instagram celebrity. So I think it has less to do, and I think it's important that we're not talking about necessarily an age demographic, but we're talking about this mindset. And what is this mindset? So I tend to look toward the positive, right? So we hear a lot about millennials and Gen Z. Some of the words you may hear are like, selfish or self-indulgent or, very eye-focused or very quick, we need quick gratification. But I think behind all of that, I think what we're really looking at are unique individuals, a unique generation. And I think if we look at it from the positive, I like to position them as 3 different types of seekers: happiness seekers, truth seekers, and impact seekers. Basically a generation that are honest and allergic to BS. These are people who are looking to be for the truth more than any other generation before. They're looking to be happy. They believe that true happiness is possible within the workspace, within their personal space, and this hybrid of both, and they're looking to make a difference. With that in mind, let's begin our 8 lessons of how we can engage with this audience for our nonprofit. So, number 1 is channel the energy. So until recently, let's say the last 20 years, there were basically 2 ways that you could fundraise and 2 ways that you can donate, either through funds, right? If you were of the means to give charity, you would give through money. And if you weren't necessarily of the means, you can give through in kind. You can give through gifts in kind. So if you can't help a person, feed them and give them money to feed them, you would make them a meal. If you can't, build a home for someone, you'd help them, right? So it's with your funds and with your skills or with your abilities. But I think that there is an entirely new way that people can be involved in both soliciting and in giving. And that is the energy that comes with the Millennial and Gen Z generation. Let me give you an example. What you're looking at over here, which may look at first glance, may look like some kind of a rave party, some kind of young people just enjoying themselves for selfish reasons. But what this is, in fact, is actually a fundraiser. Okay, what you're looking at here is a dance-a-thon, and what's happening here is there's this young people have this need to get that energy out. they have this need to get it, and they're either going to do it for more mundane things, for partying, or for things that are on the more mundane side, or there's this opportunity to align their willingness to do good, to align their willingness to give back to that young energy. And we see this in dance-a-thons, in walk-a-thons, in bike-a-thons, and in so many ways that millennials and Gen Z can use that energy to raise on behalf of the nonprofit. And I think it's most pertinent in our generation because not so much that, people have energy now and they didn't have energy then, but it's more about the way we are socially built today, where every average person is an influencer to some degree. Your average person does have a group of whether it be a WhatsApp group or a Facebook following, an Instagram following, whether it be a social group, whether it be a fraternity or sorority. Everybody is in somewhat have a circle of influence. And the opportunity today is, whether it be peer-to-peer fundraising or dance-a-thons, online, offline, to be able to channel that energy, to use energy that they would otherwise already being used for so many other things, to channel that and to align that into doing good for their community. Now, the second one is short and rich. So take a look at this picture, okay? There are two ways to tell a story, okay? You can either tell it or you can show it. But we talk about a lot being short, right? Keep it short, cut that. But we fail sometimes to talk about how rich our visuals need to be. So if you take a look at this picture, instantly a story is being told, okay? So let's give it, for example. Let me go through this picture over here. What I see is as follows, and I'm sure many people see some similarity to what I'm about to say. Here's Amy. Amy is 5 years old. Amy has been diagnosed with a rare cancer. Amy has gone through excruciating chemotherapy, and all Amy wants is to be like other children. She just wants to be able to be like other kids. Donate today to Amy to give her some type of, whether it be making a wish, to give her some type of positive experience to forget about her terrible state, whether it be research for the actual medical treatment that she can, that raising money for a possible medical treatment to actually give her a shot at beating the cancer. So you can tell that story in an 800-word article or in a 200-word advertisement, or you can literally tell it in a visual. So all you need for this right here is a call to action. So it's going to take some creativity, and it's going to demand some real thinking and back office work to come up with that perfect photo and that perfect creative approach. But listen, millennials don't have that patience or time to go through to read everything that's going on. I'll just throw you out some statistics over here about user experience and about people, how they're receiving information, especially online. So 64% of shoppers desire simplicity in the purchase process. They want things to be simple, according to Computermetrics. 74% of online consumers get frustrated with websites that offer content which doesn't directly relate to their needs and interests. Get straight to the point. 52% of shoppers feel that the majority of current websites have become overwhelming. There's too much information. 3/4 of consumers, 74%, say that the ease of browsing and searching is their number one criteria for choosing one website or another. So what does that tell you, Mr. or Mrs. Nonprofit? If you're going to have an ease of browsing, ease of searching, ease of understanding what your cause is, if you're going to keep it short and rich, people are going to choose you over another nonprofit and over another cause. Okay, so share in real time. So this is one of my favorites. So if any of you out there are watching and listening, remember that when, let's say 10 years ago, it wasn't even such a long time ago, where you wanted to capture a Sunday afternoon barbecue. So you pull out your camera, whether it be an SLR or a regular, camera. You'd have to make sure, first of all, that you had film. So you'd have to two different purchases right there. Number one. Number two, You'd have to make sure that you don't open up that camera during the shooting process, because if you do, you'd ruin the film. Now, once you were finished your picture taking, you'd have a limit of about 32, or maybe that film you had a 45 picture film. You then have to take it down to Mr. Johnson on the corner or on the strip mall to get it developed, and then Mr. Johnson would call you up a week later and say your pictures are ready. Remember this whole development process. Then a few years advanced and digital pictures came out where you didn't have to go through the development process, but rather you'd be able to take the pictures, then take out your SD card, put it on your computer, and then you'd have the ability to edit the pictures, you'd have the ability to curate the pictures, make copies, etc., etc. Okay? But it didn't end there. You see, what's happened in this millennial Gen Z generation is that, in fact, that entire process of developing and sharing is now no longer developing and sharing. It's now documenting and inviting people into your documentation. So forget about the time for developing and editing. We are now entering an age of real-time sharing. Now, this does not mean that you now have to put candid cameras all over your nonprofit and open yourself up to, just complete openness and transparency to every action, everything that's going on in your nonprofit. But this does lend to opportunities to curate a experience to share in real time. Let me give you some examples and some best practice to do this. So let's say you're an educational institution, okay? Instead of putting your teachings or your writings or your classes and recording them and editing them and trying to make them perfect, take up a cell phone, put it on your desk, go onto Facebook Live, and share your class in real time. If you are a CEO or director of development of a nonprofit organization that's servicing underprivileged children, stop thinking about how perfect you could take that picture and edit it perfectly and get that perfect smile or that perfect frown. Just take people with you into the experience. You have to understand that the millennial, because they're such truth seekers, right? They want to see without the edits. And it's the irony of things where, like, our filters, we talk about a filter generation, and that's very strong to filter things. But you know what's even stronger today? And this has become more prevalent in the last year or two, is no filter. Right? Hashtag no filter. What does that even mean? It means that we're already beyond the trying for things to be perfect, but what people are actually craving is actual rawness. So don't underestimate your constituents by thinking that they have to see things in perfect light with that perfect filter. In fact, they are much more forgiving than you think that they are. And in fact, if you want to rise above all the noise of the crowd today and of all the solicitations that are happening, the more raw you are, the more you are sharing in real time, the more engaged your audience is going to be, the more they are going to connect with you, the more they are going to connect with your cause. Number 4, fostering leadership. So this is a great one. And I think it's important that it's important to know, and I'll start with this, that over 20 million people today are what's considered non-employer businesses. Essentially what's happening is that years ago, people were content with the, gray suit and the backpack, right? And then we came to hippie age, where basically people fought against, the society was sick and tired of that generation of being everybody working for the man, working for the machine. So what are we left with? Are we left with gray suits, or are we left with hippies? Well, we're actually left with millennials, of people realizing that they can find their happiness and they can find their truth and they can find their impact with the hybrid of two. One of the ways that is manifesting is in entrepreneurship, is in leadership. In fact, at 20 million people, it's never been more than it today, call themselves basically self-employed, whether that means that they are actual CEOs of corporations or of nonprofits, or that means they're a graphic artist, or if that means they're a freelance photographer, whatever that is. people are thriving and are looking for ways to take full autonomy of their life and to take leadership. Now, what does that say to us, the nonprofit leaders who are looking to engage with millennials? Find ways to foster that entrepreneurial spirit within your organization. Okay? What are some ways that you can do that, practically speaking? You're not going to give a 27-year-old reins and keys to the vault, but you are going to be able to find ways to be able to give them real leadership opportunities. Let me give you some examples. Peer-to-peer fundraising is something I always come back to because it's a great way to do. Give them on your next fundraiser, give them their own goal. Give them their own team page. Give them their own particular project that they can raise between 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever it is. Make them feel responsible for a particular part of the organization. Events is a huge thing, okay? We think of events in this macro level of like the next big dinner or the next gala event or the next major golf outing. There is micro events that you can be creating. That can be a local dinner in somebody's house in support of your local cause, where a local millennial could be hosting an event in their home for 30, 40 of their friends to create awareness for the cause, whether it be a cheese and wine or whatever that may be. Creating micro leadership opportunities is a great way for millennials to get involved because they want to be involved, but they don't want to feel like they're just another part of this big picture. They want to feel like they are actually taking a leadership role in the organization. Okay. Number 5, interdependence. So what am I meaning by interdependence? So imagine, okay, you followed all my instructions. Okay, Moshe, I got this perfect messaging out. It's short and sweet. I have the perfect influencer in my community who's super popular in the community, and I got them to take on a leadership role, and I got them, to share in real time, to tell the perfect story. Is that enough? And the answer is no, and I'll tell you why. Because contrary to maybe what may seem intuitively that millennials want to be targeted to, they actually don't want to be targeted to as much as you think. Because if you isolate them, it's a lonely experience. Let me explain to you an example of a solution that can counter this. You have one option. You have two options. You can either come to your young millennial potential donor and you can say, hey, give to this cause. We need $5,000 to raise money for this and this cause. If you give to it, it'll make all the difference. Okay? Well, that works to some point. The messaging is clear to them. It's directed to them. It's an attainable goal, et cetera, et cetera. Or you can come to them and you can say, we have this project. It's a big goal. It may seem outside of your realm of what you can potentially help with. It's actually a $100,000 goal. But guess what? We have this and this foundation, this and this philanthropist, this private donor who is prepared to match every donation, whether it be one person doubling, a group of people tripling or quadrupling, if and only if the community of the next generation of givers, if you give your $50. So what happens is creating interdependence between millennial givers, many of whom are not capable of solving the problems or giving enough money to actually get stuff done because they still want to see the project get done. But if they know that their small amount will, two things. Number one, add up to a lot of money collectively with other people, but more importantly, unlock donors and donations from other generations, from Gen Y, right, from other early or baby boomers, from older generations. They feel like, wow, I am not only giving myself or perhaps inspiring my peers through some kind of peer-to-peer effort, but I am actually getting the larger givers and inspiring through our collective kindness, inspiring the real money where all the big money is, the 1%ers, inspiring them to give. So, and it works both ways. When you inspire the millennials to give on the shoulders and leverage major donors, the major donors, it works both ways. The major donors are going to give more, and they're going to give more involved when they know that their seed investment and their seed donation is going to inspire a new generation of givers. And it's this beautiful cycle that happens. So whenever you plan on creating some kind of a fundraiser for millennials. It's not enough to do from slide 1 to, from number 1 to 4. It's important that you don't leave out the other generation of givers. Create interdependency within your community is where you're going to see the maximum results. Number 6, and this is an easy one, and this is so obvious, is speed. So, there's about 70% of money online is lost today, of potential funds being through consumerism today is being lost in shopping cart abandonment, which means that 70% of purchases, when people come to the store, they see those beautiful shoes, they get to the cart, and for one reason or another, many times it's because it's simply the arduous process of doing it. They abandon the cart and they leave. I mean, there are literally thousands of businesses that are built just on bringing people back to the cart. So if your donation experience, whether that be online, whether that be in real time, whether that be is not fast, you are going to lose the donor. And it's not because they don't care, okay? And it's not because necessarily even because they're, ADD or whatnot. They're just expecting a certain level of speed. They get it when they go shopping. They get it when they're in the stores. They get it in their restaurants. Things are just moving quicker. They should also be able to experience that in their donation experience. And let me tell you something. This is not like a bad thing. You have to understand that people live social lives. Okay, so they want to give to you, but a lot of successful fundraising online is built off impulse, right? If you have the ability to inspire someone in the moment through a great cause, through whether it be through a match, whether it be through a great cause, whether it be through an imminent need, it's that impulse that you are feeding off to get them to give, right? People want to give, but they need to be inspired. So if you're not following up that impulse with a fast donation experience, you are just simply, they're going to move on because let me tell you something. Later in the afternoon, something else is going to get them. Okay. So this is perhaps a unique concept that maybe you've never really heard before on millennial giving. And it's as follows. So what's interesting is that millennials actually care. And in my view, more than any other generation. We hear today, the planet. What, like, you mean our planet? This, like, you're 26 years old and you care about the planet? Like, what about your neighbor next door? Like, what about things that are so local to you? Like, how are you so consumed with the issues, with the channels of the planet? And at first glance, some may see, like, how can they really care about the planet? I mean, come and care about your own neighborhood before care about the planet. But in fact, we live in a generation where people actually believe, this generation believes that what they do actually matters in the greater scale, in the greater scale of things, and in the greater scene of this world and the broader environment. Today, and people are doing something about it, whether that means they're opting out of using plastic straws or whatnot, or using plastic bags. People actually believe, we live in a generation that people believe that their small act actually impacts the entire world. That's an unbelievable thing. Like, if we stop for a moment and we say, like, wow, we've actually gotten to a place where people believe that their small actions actually matter, actually make an impact. Now, that being the case, when it comes to fundraising, okay, if you are going to tap into that reality of those people actually caring and believing that then what you need to do is you actually have to actually show them in your cause. If they can see themselves, the problem and the solution in your cause, they are going to participate. I call it this mirror impact. They want to make an impact, but they want to be able to see themselves and their own reality and their own challenges within your cause. So say, for example, you are representing an institution that that helps with students that or young people that don't have access to education. If you can make a case to the millennials that, hey, this could have been you, or this person, Samantha, Jonathan, they're not that different to you. In fact, they actually live in your neighborhood. They actually live next door to you. Create that picture, that perception that can you see yourself in this person? Can you see yourself in this scenario? Can you see yourself that if you were perhaps born in a different town, you would be less privileged to and then you give them that opportunity and say, and hey, you know what? Now that you see yourself in this situation, now that you see yourself in this problem, there's actually something you can do about it. There's actually a way that you can help. Donate here. So we need to build off this generation of people who actually believe that the world's problems are their problems. Bring it down to reality. Show them that your individual institution is relevant to them and how their participation can actually help solve the problem, because they believe that they can actually help solve the problem. And that's a wonderful thing. And that goes back and ties in to my final, I think, number 8, which is community. So imagine you are able to create this this mirror impact situation where you can show them, like, hey, here's Samantha, here's Jonathan. They are less privileged than you, but they're your age and they come from your demographic. They come from, and for just $100, you could make it all the difference. Well, the first thing that a potential millennial or Gen Z giver who, like we mentioned in the beginning, does want to help, does want to participate, is a truth seeker, is an honesty seeker, but and they're ready to give, but then automatically they pause in their mind. And this all happens in a millisecond. And they ask themselves, well, how far is my little bit going to actually make a difference, right? Is my $20, because I can't really afford more than that, or is my $100, is it actually going to make a difference? And here's where community comes apart. No longer can we fundraise in isolation. No longer can we fundraise from this generation one individual at a time, right? We have to find opportunities where we are harnessing the crowd, where we are harnessing the collective power of the people, of the community, where in that instant, should I give my $50? Should I not give my $50? Before they have a chance to think about whether it's a good idea or not, they see, oh, wow, there are actually hundreds of people who are giving right now in real time for a specific goal that we're trying to reach right now. And if I participate, I can actually help solve this problem. And I actually feel, because I feel part of this community, brothers and sisters coming together to solve an actual problem. And they can solve the problem because a little bit from a lot of people adds up to so much. That is where ultimately you are going to get millennials to get involved. You get them the right messaging. You get them the right influencers to be ambassadors for your messaging. Okay? You show them in your cause. You create interdependence between major givers and small givers. You foster the leadership that they that raw entrepreneurial spirit that they have. You're sharing in real time. But if you fail to create that sense of community in that moment, where they are able to sense that they are not just one individual giving, rather they are part of a larger community of hundreds and thousands of people who are giving to this cause, that is when they are going to give. That is when they are going to participate. Some examples, practical ways that you can do that. Stop spreading all your fundraisers over the year and spreading them out. You're doing your direct mail, you're doing your email marketing, you're doing your social media campaigns, and you're doing your events. Have you ever thought of doing that all at one time in that one day or 1 week, or consolidating all of that into one place so that your major givers, your micro givers, your more affluent, your less affluent are actually coming together in one location, visualizing in real time, seeing that there are so many other people who are participating, and realizing that the amount that they can give, that little bit amount that they can give, is actually adding up to actually solve the problem? It's that ingredient of community. By not isolating the millennial into their own weird, demographic of this alien culture of young people who just care about themselves. No. It's about bringing everyone together, giving them the sense they're a part of something, they're solving something together, and that their little bit actually makes a difference. You give them that sense of community, they will come through for you. So in closing, I'd just like to say thank you, everyone, for participating today and for listening to me. You can find Charidy at our Twitter or Instagram handle is @WeAreCharidy. My channel, if you'd like to send me a message, tag me or whatnot, is @Moshe Hecht. It's @MOSHEHECHT. If you'd like to get in touch with us directly, you can email our client success manager, Jessica, who's on with us today. That's JESSQ @charidy.com. You can email her directly, and we will be in touch. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass it over now to questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Moshe. That was amazing. Just really powerful insights. I think a lot of times we hear these things, but just new ways to consider both these generations and what they need, kind of what's running through their mind, and what are those call to actions that really get them to take that leap for your organization. So powerful stuff. Thank you. And at this time, as mentioned, we're going to transition over into questions. So now's the perfect time to ask your questions. You can do that by using the chat box, and we will start flagging those questions as they come in. So we've got a couple. The first question here is, what about nonprofits that work with kids and media releases? Is that a factor in sharing in real time? So that was a question pertaining to that real time comment you made about, you were saying you don't necessarily have to show everything in real time. So yeah, I don't know if you want to answer that question specifically.
So the question is, what do you deal with situations that are more sensitive? Like, can you share in real time with children?
Exactly. Well, especially when you work with kids. Yeah, when you work with kids, and you'll have to have things like media releases. Is that something that is appropriate to share?
Yeah, well, I think the practical answer is that any institution should be getting release forms from their parents or their guardians or whatnot. My kids just started school, and it's funny because my wife happens to be a massive online influencer, celebrity online. And when they asked her on the school release, would you like your kids to be in any videos or anything? And she said no. She, doesn't want the kids to be subject to any unwarranted or any unwanted public advertisement of any what shape or form. So I think it's important that you cover your bases by that. I think some parents are okay with it, some parents are not. So it's about preparing ahead of time. It's about making sure that you have consent from the children's guardians before.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that really practical question. So next one is, what are some of the main differences between millennials and Gen Z in regard to engagement preferences and or giving motivation? Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so I think it's important to state that I am not the professional on what happens if they were born. Like I opened up in the beginning, if they were born after 2000, or if they were born versus 1999 versus 2001, what are those preferences? I actually believe that this millennial Gen Z state of mind goes through from anywhere from 5 to 85. You know, I've seen organizations where you have elderly people who are running, you know, marathons and raising funds for their nonprofits. But I think one thing that I can give, insight I can give, is platforms are very distinctive today in terms of with generations. You'll give very, very clear data in terms of what types of platforms the generational people are actually spending time on. So Facebook is of a much older demographic, in 30s. Instagram is younger than that, and then you have Snapchat, which is even, you know, the high school generation. So if a nonprofit with limited resources is looking to attract a certain generation, so if your constituents are Gen Z, I would spend much more time on. I almost tell nonprofits that have a Gen Z following to not even bother with Facebook. Be busy on Snapchat, be busy on Instagram. That's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. If you have a broader budget, if you have a greater capacity to think, then fine, you know, even have a LinkedIn presence. But when thinking about limited capacity, study the platforms, because the platforms are greatly subsectored by age today. That's just the way it is. That, you know, the platforms are built for and attract a certain audience and a certain age much more than others.
Great. Thank you. And another question here: what is the best platform for millennials to give? Is it online only? Are there other channels? What do you recommend?
Sure, that's a great question. So obviously, online is going to be your first point of contact in many scenarios. You know, a lot of times people are going to see you first online and then engage with you further. So I would look at it. It's all about integration. Okay, I would look at the online platform as a way to segue into offline. Now that I got you online, how can I get you to come to a new event? Almost more than that, how can I get you to give again online, but how can I get you to come to our event that's coming up? And then vice versa. If you're coming to an event and you're coming to volunteer, right? A lot of donors, the numbers are pretty high in terms of donors that started off as volunteers and then segued into donors. So it's about integration. And that goes not just with online versus offline, it goes with all different means of communication. We're no longer in an age where one means of communication is better than the other. Now, I remember I was at the Yale Philanthropy Conference in 2000, I think it was 2016, and the CEO of St. Jude's Hospital said that he remembers in, I don't remember what it was, maybe 2006, 2007, where you know, everybody was getting out of direct mail, right? And everyone was like, you know, just like migrating away from direct mail. So what did he do? He doubled down on it because he was able to now get all those people who weren't. But I think the greater lesson to here is that millennials and Gen Z, more than any other generation, are receiving information on multiple points of contact. They almost cannot make a decision unless they saw it in print, then they saw it online, then they heard it on the radio, and then they saw it as a commercial on YouTube. If they see it in 5 points, that's when they're like, okay, must be something I need to try. So we cannot forget in time and real person also. It's why Coca-Cola has their ads in every single store, because they know that being on the radio or being in the magazine, it's not enough. They got to be inside the store. So the key is fully integratable between online and offline.
All right, I love this next question here from Jessica. I'm a millennial, and the biggest thing I feel like I hear from my peers is, why should it be my money that's being donated? How do I convince my peers that the issues I work with are their issues too?
That's great. That's really great. So here's what I tell Jessica. I think it's about showing the actual power that they have, right? People ask, why should it be my money? I think the real question is, what's my money going to actually matter, right? As in, like, well, I don't have that much. So, you're trying to solve hunger, you're trying to solve homelessness. You're like, what's my $50 going to do? It's not how much going to get you far. It's like, going to buy you 3 rolls of toilet paper, and it's probably going to go to overhead. It's probably going to buy a simple pencil part sharpener. It's not even going to make it to the food that has to go into the mouth to feed this child or whatever. And I think the answer is that we need to show this millennial and Gen Z how their little bit actually will make a difference and will matter, right? People are inherently good. We have to believe in the inherent goodness of people. And the reason why they are not giving is not because they are bad, is because they are not making the connection between their investment and the actual solution. So, and this really comes down to my last point, where community is more, the interdependence and community is more important than anything. Because if you give people a sense that, you know what, why your money? You're right. I shouldn't take your money. In fact, if you're the only donation that I'm going to get today, or if you're the only donation I'm going to get this week, or if I'm only getting from another 15 people, I don't even deserve to be in this business of fundraising. But if your donation is piling on and being a part of this, this pixel in this greater picture of thousands of other people who are giving that can actually solve a problem, that's why you should give. You don't even give them a chance to say, why me, why the other person? The answer is you, and the other person is also giving. But guess what? You don't have to break your bank to participate. You're giving just a little bit. But we've done the hard work by orchestrating this reality where a little bit from a lot of people does make a difference.
Great. And this next question here from Kong, any recommendations on words or comments to attract donors online? So maybe like specific messaging that you've had particular success with?
Words or comments. Well, I think the best way to categorize it is, are you, there are generally 2 ways to be telling a story. You're either telling a sob story or you're telling us a solution story. And both of them actually work. Some people say like, oh, we don't like to tell, sob stories. In the right time, a sob story is actually effective. So first of all, I think you'd have to think, what story are you telling right now? Are you telling a story to show the problem, or are you telling a story right now that is going to create the solution? So that's number 1, 2 categories. So if you're, and it's hard to tell both at this simultaneously. So you want to focus on really focusing on what the problem is and getting people to come in because they see that the problem is real. And it's not about making it urgent or emergency or desperation. You're simply showing like this is a real problem, and you're educating. You're showing people like this. So focusing on the problem, and then there's focusing on the solution, where it's like, that this problem exists, right? They may be a more educated consumer. That there X amount of people are homeless in this city. But guess what? We have a solution. So it's either educating on the problem and the solution. There's very little in between. One thing I can tell you is like, and I'll add this. It's funny. Corporations are. Let me throw something at you, right? Okay. You see an ad from Apple. I'm sorry. Let's say Coca-Cola. You see an ad from Coca-Cola, right? What is Coca-Cola focusing on? Am I focusing on the details of the drink, right? Basically, sugary drink that could nearly kill you, that is terrible for your health, that will make you lethargic, and that's going to, impede on your goals of life of losing weight and being healthy, right? And how do they actually communicate that? Open happiness, right? Think about for a second what nonprofits are doing, right? Nonprofits are actually creating ways to make people happier, but their messaging sounds more like 88% of children in the United States are now have an educational thing, and 42% of people are think, what? How do we? It's like, say what you're actually doing. You're opening happiness. Don't be afraid. Don't leave that to the corporation to get straight to the core of what values you are selling. So take that data, all that stuff where you think we're so insecure. It's like, well, they don't believe that we're doing, so I have to throw data at them. It's not about the data. Take the data and learn how to curate that data into a message that's going to inspire people. The corporation shouldn't be the only ones that are getting that have all the ad dollar to be able to be spending, to be able to get straight. Open happiness. Think different. Just do it. These sound like slogans that should be being used by the American Cancer Society or by the Make-A-Wish Foundation or by your local school. They're not. They're being used by sneaker companies and hardware and sugary drinks. Think like the companies. And I'm not saying nonprofits should think like businesses. I don't believe in that. Right? Nonprofits should think like nonprofits. And take your values and take your cause that you're doing and bring that to the forefront. And if you build a good reputation and if you build a good brand and if you're positioned well, they'll trust you on the numbers.
Mm-mm. That's right. Yeah, lead with solution and values rather than the more feature and functions, right? And connecting it more holistically. Yeah, we just have, let's see, maybe time for one more question here. We've gotten so many good questions. Thank you. We'll do our best to follow up. I know there's some specific questions here, so I'm just kind of picking and choosing questions that can help the greater community that is on this call. So let's see here. One more, maybe around some other examples around good fundraising events and ideas for this particular generation. Like what else have you seen working really well in terms of ideas? So you gave the dance-a-thon as one idea. What else have you seen be successful?
Yeah, sure. So, well, in a charity in my business, we specialize in giving days, and I think giving days is probably the single most impactful way to get to the millennial and Gen Z generation. What it does is it gives a turnkey solution for millennials and Gen Z to get involved. Okay, and I talk a lot about a lot of my writings about the difference between peer-to-peer, the way the industry understands it, and peer-to-peer as in doing it not in this 3-month stretched out thing, but giving days. I'm a big fan of giving days because what it does is it's like that Black Friday for shopping, right? We all want that screen. We all want that computer. We all want that camera, but we can't necessarily afford it, or we can't necessarily. But Black Friday comes around and says, well, this and this day, between this and this time, you'll be able to finally get that camera that you've always wanted, or get that screen. It's the same type of psychology that works with giving days, where it's like, yeah, we got it. You're busy, and you got other things going on, and you're living check to check. But guess what? There's going to be this one day out of the year where everyone's coming together, and this day is where your money is going to go really far, because there's this clock and it's ticking and there's a goal and we got to reach it together and everyone else is doing it. And if you add a matching component, that you double or triple or quadruple people's money, you're getting like that charitable discount, right? And all the different features that you can be using in giving days. If you're right now a nonprofit out there and you have this potential or existing young base of donors, and you're thinking about okay, what can I do right now? Plan a giving day. Plan that for year end, instead of just trying to write a hashtag on Giving Tuesday and setting up a page, plan it. Plan for a day of giving. Plan to consolidate your efforts toward the end of the year towards one day. You'll be surprised what happens when it becomes it's a difference between a slow walking turtle of fundraising day to day and a rocket ship that happens on one day. If you plan from now, if you start planning now for your year-end fundraising, and instead of making it a month fundraiser, but make it a day of giving, all of those benefits that I've mentioned till now will come to the surface and come to fruition on a giving day.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Great answers. Great questions again. Thank you to everyone on the line. And I know we didn't get to answer a lot of them. However, we will get a report of all the questions that were asked, and we'll do our absolute best to get to them at a later point, one-on-one if possible. So please stay tuned. And with that, let's see. It looks like, do you know what, Moshe, if you can advance the slide for me, because it looks like my screen has frozen, so I can just kind of continue along here. But if you wouldn't mind going on to the next one.
Got it. So join us for our webinars.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're there.
Let's see.
Or we keep
yeah.
going?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably why I can't see it. So, and it's all frozen on my screen. So yeah, just thank you again for sharing all this information. So along with your fellow attendees, everyone on the line, if you can please just share just one thing that you learned in today's webinar. You can do that in the chat box, and that just helps us understand what were some of the big takeaways for you, and also it helps us improve our webinars. Another way to help us improve our webinars is to complete our post-event survey. You'll get that at the end of this webinar and in an email. And lastly, don't forget to follow us on social media. Oh, and it looks like it's back. Okay. And let's see here. Oh, am I able to go back to, well, that's okay. We'll just follow along here. You'll get all these slides post-webinar, so don't worry. So we do have some upcoming webinars, so you can take a look at those. And then also some great resources for change makers like yourself. You can check out our TechSoup courses. It's a social learning platform that provides nonprofits and libraries with just-in-time solutions-based training. And yes, we've got a discount code. You can get 10% off a TechSoup course of your choice. And there are so many out there, from Google Analytics, social media. We've got a wide array of courses. So please use this discount code, and we'll be sure to include that in the follow-up email as well. It's at FY19Web10. All right. And I think that is going to do it. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and thank you again to Moshe for sharing all your knowledge, taking your time with us on this captivating content. There's a lot to learn here. So thank you again, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.